Jeremy Corbyn has warned that senior Labour figures are underestimating the level of public support for his leadership campaign as he continues to draw large crowds. The left-wing MP declared he was happy about the robust nature of the contest, declaring that's democracy, things are going well. But his two main rivals, Yvette Cooper and Andy Burnham, have descended into something of a slanging match over who's best placed to stop the Corbyn bandwagon. As Cordelia Lynch, who you just saw there in the studio, reports now.
Is this last throw of the dice territory, a public war of words erupting between Labour leadership candidates? First, Yvette Cooper called for Andy Burnham to step aside, accusing him of failing to provide an effective alternative to Jeremy Corbyn.
Of course there are going to be differences between us around policies, around the answers for the country, and we've got to be honest about that, not pretend that we agree with each other, because that's not being straight with party members who've got to make a choice.
Andy Burnham's team in turn accused her of a panicked, desperate stunt straight out of the Ed Balls handbook.
I think it's disappointing. I made a speech yesterday where I praised all of the other candidates. I said they'd added something to the campaign, and all of those things need to be captured coming out of it, because we do need to knit Labour together. But if the campaign becomes negative with other campaigns going in that direction, I don't think it's going to help us as a Labour Party. You know, from my point of view, I'm keeping it positive.
So why the rising tension? Well, arguably the struggle to halt the Jeremy Corbyn juggernaut. The Maverick-turned frontrunner was in London trying to shift the focus onto renationalising the railways.
We have the most expensive railways in Europe. We have very hard-working rail staff. We have a very good system, but it needs to be fully integrated and I believe should be publicly owned.
It's a popular policy backed by the unions and around 60% of the country.
Andy Burnham's also talked about renationalising the rail. Why is Corbyn the man for you?
Only Corbyn is offering a concrete guarantee that our railways will be returned to public ownership. Unfortunately, Andy Burnham is talking about a policy that would involve bidding. That is not clear-cut. What Jeremy is saying, that as franchises expire, they will be brought back into public ownership. That is the policy of our union. It's actually the policy that has been adopted as a couple of Labour Party conferences, and I think it should be the policy not just of Jeremy Corbyn, but of the next Labour government.
So what about renationalising public utilities? Burnham claims it isn't a priority when people's tax credits are being cut. His rival, though, has suggested the government could take a majority equity stake in utility companies. But does the veteran left-winger want to go all the way?
Mr Corbyn, Andy Burnham says he's not sure you want to be Prime Minister, do you?
Well, why would I be here? Why would our campaign be here if we didn't want to win this campaign in order to make the Labour Party a more effective campaigning organisation in order that we can win the 2020 election? I heard Andy's comments. I didn't spill my coffee at the time. I smiled.
Do you think it's all got a bit nasty, this campaign? Are you enjoying it?
Well, we're doing nothing nasty, we say nothing nasty, we do nothing nasty. I do occasionally glimpse some of our popular press on the newsstands, and some people say very unpleasant things.
What about your rivals?
And I'm disappointed in your colleagues in your profession.
He's got reason to smile. One betting firm are already paying out on a Corbyn victory.
Now, back to the Labour leadership contest, and all over the country, ballot papers have been landing on the doorsteps of party members, affiliates and people who've signed up as supporters. And according to the bookmaker Paddy Power, it could turn out to be the biggest upset in political betting history. Quote, well, with me is the journalist and author Laurie Penny, who's backing Jeremy Corbyn, and Stephen Bush, who writes for the New Statesman and supports anyone but Corbyn. Thanks for coming in, both of you. So, Stephen, it's not going your way, is it, really?
No, I mean, I put 20 quid on Jeremy Corbyn when he was still at 3-1. I fully expect to be able to collect my winnings, but I think the other people who'll be celebrating will be the Conservative Party, who'll be in office for at least a decade more.
But the candidates that you're backing aren't exactly helping themselves, are they? With all this backbiting and backstabbing that we've had in the last few days.
No, I mean, the three
against each other, not against Corbyn.
The three non-Corbyn candidates have been a horror show as well. They've completely failed to put a positive case to the Labour Party members. They've forgotten that you need to win this election to win the general election. Unfortunately, just because they deserve to lose, and Corbyn, in terms of his campaign, he absolutely deserves to win. He's absolutely been far and away the best candidate in terms of winning the Labour leadership. But in terms of the further damage it will do to Labour's already fraught relationship with middle-class voters in Middle England, with various communities that have already turned away from the Labour Party, I cannot think of anything worse for Labour than for 5 years of Corbyn.
Laurie, please.
Well, you speak about the middle class. In about 15 years ago, 2/3 of young people expected to own their own houses. In 10 years' time, that will be less than 40%. The middle class itself is shrinking and squeezed and no longer plays to the same purely aspirational logic as it did before. And bear in mind that Corbyn is a candidate who was once... His policies and principles would once have put him on the centre of Labour's, and he has stuck to his same principles, and now he's being painted as this cross between Stalin and Chairman Mao with a little red book over his heart. You know, this is seen as the most revolutionary leftist moment we've had for many, many years. Just points to how void of ideas the Labour Party has become.
Okay, but even Jeremy Corbyn said today that he actually wants to get elected. He wants to run the country in order to put his policies into place. So when you have every living former leader of the Labour Party, including one man who was re-elected as Prime Minister quite a few times, saying Corbyn is a disaster, he will never get the party elected, don't you take that a bit serious?
But one thing that I wonder is the Labour Party seems to be making the argument that there's no point having principles if you don't have power. But if you don't have principles that you stand on, what's the point of having that power in the end? Surely, and this is the thing about the three other candidates, they seem to have no ideas other than the idea of themselves as a leader. You know, Jeremy Corbyn at least has some ideas. Listen to the rest of them speak. What are they actually for? I don't know.
And to be fair, I mean, when he does pronounce a policy, even if you disagree with it, you know, he does so in a fairly clear way, and there are no caveats at the end of it. I mean, that is something that appeals to voters and supporters who are looking for authenticity.
Yeah, he's clear, he's authentic. Nigel Farage is clear and authentic. He got 12.5% of the vote. It is not necessarily a road to majority government or even coalition government. I don't think it's actually wholly fair to the other three to say they don't have any ideas. Andy Burnham, who has run a witless campaign, but yeah, his idea for a national care service, that, you know, the cost of care and growing old is, yeah, effectively a huge tax on, that is not a non-transformational thing. Ditto Liz Kendall's focus on early years, again, that is when inequality starts. And Yvette Cooper gave, to me, the most policy-rich speech of all four. It was very dull and wonkish in her kind of Yvette Coopery way, but...
Do you both think that we would be where we are at the moment if Chuka Umunna had run for leadership of the party?
I think that Chuka Umunna is a very gifted politician in many ways, but he seems to present the same sort of face that the nominal centre-left has clearly decided is the kind of politics that we now do, which is homogenous, bland, playing to the neoliberal line, countering to...
I mean, it is a different face there, isn't it? I mean, it would have made some difference in the campaign, wouldn't it, at the moment, if he had run?
No, I think the Labour select... Well, I think if Chuka was in the race, then the other candidates wouldn't have felt able to lend nominations to Jeremy Corbyn, because that would have put a squeeze on the number of MPs there were available. But I think, you know, Corbynism is about a moment on the left which looks at what's happening in Greece and Spain, which looks at what has happened in Scotland, and believes that there is space for a more radical left-wing politics in...
Yeah, well, this is a moment for the left that's going on across Europe.
All right, great. On that note, we've got to leave. I'm afraid we've run out of time. Laurie Penny, Stephen Bush, thanks for coming in.